How to make this tracks plus ball animation inside of Cinema4D completely procedurally, and everything from the tracks to the distribution of the balls can be updated within minutes to make those last minute changes effortless. I go over everything you need to know when it comes to a setup like this. Let's start off by creating the tracks for our ball scene first. I'm going to take my spline pen and enable snapping on the guides and grid work plane. So it is much easier for me to create these 90-degree points. And I'm going to select all these points and chamfer it. I'm thinking maybe 100 centimeters. Yeah, that looks good. This way it is easier for us to edit it as well. If I select the right points, I can move it in 90-degree angles very easily. We have our spline. Now I'm going to take this plane and put that into a sweep. And for the sweep to work, we need a profile for it. And for the profile, I'm going to make a rectangle. I'm going to put that inside of a circle. I'm going to move the circle up a little bit and scale this down. I think that looks good. I'm going to select both of these and put that into a spline mask. And I'm going to set that to B subtract A. And that looks good. And if I'm going to put the spline mask inside of my sweep, we get this. And right now you can see it is flipped, right? So I'm going to select my spline, go into points, select all, and point order, reverse sequence. And we have got it in the right orientation. And right now our profile is a bit too big. Let's scale it down. Yeah, that looks much better. And you can see right now the geometry is not super smooth for the track. So I'm going to go into our circle and set that to subdivided, and that fixes it. Now the track looks pretty good. Now let's work on our sphere. It is going to be a very basic sphere. I'm going to set this to hemisphere. I want the sphere to be made up of two hemispheres so that it is much more easier to understand how the rotation is working. Yeah, that looks good. I'm going to put both of these into a null. Let's name it sphere. Let's put that inside of a cloner. And inside the cloner, I want it to be cloned on the plane of the track we have. I'm going to set it to object, and let's take our spline. Right now, the sphere is a bit too big. So let's scale it down. If I come in here, you can see there's a clear intersection happening. The reason why that is happening is because this spline and this spline mask is in the same line. So we have to bring down the axis of the spline mask and it will work fine. So let's bring it down a bit. Let me check. Yeah, that looks good. And again, I'm going to scale up. Okay, and I'm going to increase it maybe to 25. And you can see this clustering thing is happening. The reason why that is happening is because the spline is set to adaptive. Instead, if we set to uniform, it will work perfectly fine. The points are being distributed uniformly inside of that curve. But then what happens is we get this jaggedness. You see, it's giving us sharper edges. So we can increase our point number in uniform. And obviously, it is going to make the mesh a lot more denser, but yeah, we get a much more better, smoother result of it. And let's increase the count, and this is how it looks. Also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a few more splines. I'm going to put this inside of a connect. Then I'm going to copy this and move this spline again. Copy this again and move this spline again. I'm going to move it around a bit. Let's go into our camera. Yeah, something like that looks good. And in the cloner, instead of cloning on a single spline, I'm going to say it to clone on the whole connect. And that is going to make it look like that. And right now, you can see that even though these two are completely packed, this is not completely packed. The reason why that happens is because the overall length of this is consistent, while the overall length of this is much longer than this one. So the workaround is to apply it with a different cloner so that we can give that a different count number. But right now I'm not going to worry about that, or instead I am just going to remove that for now. Yeah, let's work with these two. And now we have scattered all these spheres pretty well. Now let's figure out how the animation of this would work. The easiest way would be to animate this offset. And right now it has an easing to it. I'm going to set this to linear. And the final one, let's set it to maybe 35. Okay, now we have to figure out how the rotation of these spheres would work. Yeah, I think if we rotate it on RP, it is going to work perfectly fine for us. So let's start it from there on the 10th frame. Let's set it to 30 maybe. Yeah, let's set that to linear as well. And also, if I'm going to select this one, and after I want it to offset repeat. So the animation is being repeated. Yeah, you can see the rotation is way too fast. So let's play with it a little bit. Minus 120. I think let's also add 2 more materials so that we can clearly see how the rotation is happening. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. And right now you can see all the balls are rotating in the same way, they're moving in the same way, which doesn't look good. We need a bit more randomness in here. So I'm going to select our cloner, put it into a plane effector, go into parameters, disable position. I want the rotation to be randomized. So let's make it 360, 360, and 360. And you can see nothing happened. But if I go into our fields and put it into a random field, something is happening. If I set that to sorted, you can see now we have a much more varied starting rotation they start with. But I feel this is a bit too much. So I'm going to set this to 0, set this to 0. And right now it is only being rotated randomly on the RP rotation. And I like that. I like this randomness. I think maybe we could decrease this to 25 maybe. Yeah, that looks good. But now we have another problem. There is no, and now we have solved one of the problem, which was the consistent rotation. But there is this consistent gap happening between each of these boards. I also want a bit of variation in that. I want there to be certain gaps between these boards. So for that, I'm going to take the cloner. Let's set this to rotation random. Select the cloner, put that into a plane effector. Let's call this position random. Take parameter, disable position. Going to take scale and -1, -1, -1. And again, put it into a random field and set this to sorted. And if I select my remapping, contour mode and set it to step. And with the remapping set to step, now there is only two possibilities. Either the ball is in its initial state or it's -1 in scale, which means it is invisible. So if I come into our random field and change the seed, you can see we are creating these random gaps in it. And it is completely procedural. So it's a lot easier to art direct as well. And now let's say in these gaps, I want a different object to be there. I can do that as well. If I'm going to copy this cloner, I'm going to delete this sphere, put a cube inside of it instead. And I don't want the rotation random for it. And also I have to delete this. I don't want any rotation on the cubes. Now it's moving. Let's scale down the cubes. And you can see the cubes is taking the exact spot of the spheres. So the position random, I'm going to copy that and I'm going to name it position random invert. And here in remapping, I'm going to invert this. Yeah, and in here, I'm going to drag and drop that. So now we have a system where we don't want the spheres, we can put another object in there. So that is also another possibility as well.